साड़ी सिर्फ पहनावा नहीं, समय की लिखी हुई एक किताब है। हर पल्लू में इतिहास, हर सिलवट में स्त्री की एक कहानी आबाद है। The book The Sari Eternal, a tribute, is a rich lyrical and personal exploration of the sari as a living archive of Indian culture, history and femininity. Please welcome Mrs. Lakshmi Murdeshwar Puri, a former Indian diplomat and UN Assistant Secretary General, renowned for her global leadership in gender equality, human rights, and international cooperation. She is an award-winning author of Swallowing the Sun and continues to shape conversations at the intersection of policy, culture, and women empowerment. And to take this conversation forward, we have Ms. Ambreen Khan. Can we have a huge round of applause? Brand communication expert, active media personality, authority on Indian Express, also works with this Indian Express group. I request Ambreen Khan to take this conversation forward. Thank you.
It's a very bright day. And in a very bright day, you have two ladies in saris, and you can see Mrs. Puri, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri, always wearing her saris, celebrating the colors. And not only now, but I've seen her forever wear her saris and enjoy wearing her saris. And I am wearing the sari more for the book today and more for her than anything else. So today,
but
after
not only as an exception. Now you are a convert.
I am 100% convert. Today I was sharing this with her a little while ago that after a very long time, when I was leaving home, my husband told me, "Oh, looking nice. A man who speaks in sentences." Okay, after a very long time, he said, "Jo main nahi kar paya, wo Mrs. Puri ne kar diya hai." So here we are. So, and I hope and certainly the outcome of today's conversation will encourage a lot of women, not only here, but definitely who will watch this show digitally across India and everywhere in the world, to start pulling out their best saris. And if not the best saris, buy cheap saris, cotton saris, and saris to start wearing saris, basically. So congratulations, Mrs. Puri, for this very successful journey already with the book. How many sessions have you already done? And how has been the response till now?
Jaipur Literature Festival was the launch of the book, formal launch of the book. And then after that, I have done a session with Priya Sehgal.
That's right.
On News X. So those of you who are already into the book, I would ask you to also watch that interview. And then, of course, we are now 1 month from the publication of the book, and I'm very pleased that the book has already got validation and appreciation from the connoisseurs and the cognoscenti. In particular, there are 2 reviews that I would ask our readers to and our audience here to also look at. One by Malvika Singh, and another in the Indian Express, and the other one in the Sunday Guardian by Alka Pandey. Both of them cultural czarinas. So when they pronounce that I have added value through the book, that it is unique, that it's a poetry on the sari and about the sari. So, and it's a story of the sari and stories about the sari that are revelations as much as information. So I think it's very reaffirming for me and for the book. And the book is doing very well. Already, I think the publishers are on to the 2nd edition.
That's right.
So, any feedbacks that you have will be put into that 2nd edition.
Ms. Puri, there's so many questions. First, I want to confess that many books have been written on saris, but this book is very different and it's very unique and very special. Why? Because nobody has written about the core and the soul and how the core and the soul reaches to the world. And you know, and its chapters, the way the chapters have been woven. We're going to talk about all of that in a bit with her, and I'm going to get her to talk about that. But before we move on the conversation, I want to definitely ask you to set a context in, you know, for everyone to come on the same page, that sari is the most versatile symbol of every woman's identity. It's part of our heritage, and certainly it gives us a lot of confidence. So how do you think that the modern world is adapting sari? What does it symbolize? And do you want to talk about that in the beginning and then we move ahead?
No, let me perhaps also begin by the why of this book, if you will. Permit me. You see, David Davidar, the Aleph publisher and editor, came to me and said, write a book on the Sari Eternal.
Yes.
This is part of our the Essential India series. So I was a bit taken aback because I'm not a textiles expert. I'm not a researcher on some of these aspects of craft and art of India. I live the sari, and that's the reason he said, because you live the sari, because as I say in my book, it's second skin to you, you must write it. And I said, but you know, we have so many encyclopedias, we have so many beautifully illustrated books on the sari. And there are textile, scholarly books on the sari and textiles. So what is it that I'm going to add value, as you said right at the beginning? So then he turned around and said, this should be your personal, very experiential take on the sari. Because you have not only lived it and lived in it, but also you have taken it to the world.
That's right.
As a diplomat, kept faith with it. So come out with the story of the sari. So when I started writing it, and of course I can never say no to David, even though it meant a diversion from another novel project that I had started working on. But so when I started writing, the revelation came that I was meant to write this book. And then I wrote it, जैसे कहते हैं ना, मदमस्त मलंग, हाँ, उस तरह से.
So how long did
it, you know, that I really got completely sucked into the writing of this book.
I remember the previous book was very, very different in its tone and in its
It
character.
was a novel.
It was a novel. And
Yes.
this book is a short book, but it's intense. How long did it take you to actually, from the time of conceiving the idea to putting it out for publication?
It took me 9 months, as much as a baby getting born, from the conception to the finish line, the final text. Yes, it looks. So, what is it? So, this book is a capsule about the sari. So, there's everything for the neophytes who don't know about the sari, Indian or foreign, men or women, young or old. This is a kind of a mini encyclopedia. But at the same time is, as you said, intense. And as Malvika Singh said in her review, It contains an ocean of complex ideas, interpretations, mores, motives, colors, textures, everything woven together from my, and I would say this, that from a very self-realized vision of the sari.
That's right.
And through the eye of imagination. There are many things that, for example, when I was writing this book and I was sending chapters to the editor, and the editor would question me, really, is it like that? And I said, yes, trust me, because I am the sari wearer. I am the one who is the interpreter of the sari and having this conversation with the sari. So this book is a conversation with the sari. It's a love letter, an ode, a tribute. The book says it's a tribute. It's a tribute to the sari. And at the same time, this is, somehow the sari comes to life. It's seen as a sentient being, not an object or even a subject. So that's how I've conceived this act of creation. It's as much an act of creation, to your question, as the novel, but in a different space.
It has, sari has a huge deal of cultural significance, and it's deeply rooted into our ancient history. It'll be great to hear from you, the evolution of sari, and how you imbibed this evolution since your childhood to becoming a public person, and this massive international portfolio that you handled. But it'll be great to talk about the core of, as we discussed, the core of this of sari in particular, related to the culture piece and related to the ancient history of India. Would you like to read something? It'll be great if you
I will. Just to begin by saying, why is it essential India? Why is sari a symbol of essential India? I think let me begin with that. Because the sari is, it really represents the Indian civilizational beauty, complexity, its grace, depth and philosophy, because this book, I see sari as philosophy as well. Philosophy, and it is also, Indian civilization is one of the greatest civilizations because of its continuity. And that's why the book is called The Sari Eternal. To show that there has been, as you said, from 5,000 years ago in the Harappan Indus Valley civilization to now, we have a continuity of the sari. The sari is flowing all from then to here. And what began, of course, it has evolved, as you rightly said also. It was perhaps originally a three-piece unstitched fabric. Then it went on to take the present forms as we see it now. But it has been a continuum. And so that is also something very civilizational and Indian. The other aspect is the whole of India is wrapped by the sari. Whether you are from north or south, east or west,
yes,
whether you are Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, any denomination, whether you are tribal, whether you are in the rural areas, whether you are in urban areas, the sari drapes you around as one India. And so therefore I talk about how the sari is unity in diversity and diversity in unity.
So
let me,
Ji,
sorry.
would you like to read? How will it get you
so
to?
I would like to also,
This sun is really hard on two
you know-
women in saris.
I tell you.
Ji? No, it's okay. Would you care for a
Huh?
sun? You're okay with the
No,
sun?
no, I'm all right, but you are facing directly, ना? आप ऐसे कर लो, आप ऐसे करो. Let's come here. Come here.
Now this is better.
Reposition cameras. So, let me therefore briefly talk about, you mentioned the 6 chapters, and Jayati here, who's my, as I've mentioned her in the book, who is my resident Indian daughter. So she, very interestingly commented that I have 6 chapters somehow representing the 6 yards of the sari. So the first chapter is about my love affair with the sari. From childhood to now, how I have embraced the sari. And of course, there is the first para itself, which explains why I became Madhamasta Malang writing this book. The sari, this unstitched river of fabric that winds around my body is not clothing. It's a second skin for me. I live in it, and it makes me whole aesthetically and spiritually. And then it ends by saying, it has excited my senses. The touch, the feel, the sight, the taste, and the scent of beauty unfurled. I've held that sweet secret of joy that one shares only with oneself. So I have now, through this book, shared that sweet secret of joy, which thus far I've held to myself, but now I share it with all of you. And in the first chapter, therefore, I talk about incidents that have been kind of sari milestones in my life. I also talk about how my life partner, Hardeep ji, he's wearing a turban, and our mutual admiration of that garment, the unstitched fabric, and the significance of the unstitched fabric, that there is a certain sanctity in Indian civilization to the unstitched fabric. I've talked about that. And the fact that, his tying the turban and my tying a sari are a kind of jugalbandi and a kind of ode to our quest for perfection and worship in a way. So, and then I also talked about not only my childhood, my mother, all the role models like Indira Gandhi and others, but also as I became a diplomat and I roamed the world in different roles, both as Indian diplomat and a world, global diplomat in the UN, how I kept faith with the sari, how it became part of my power dressing, not something that I was awkward in or I felt out of place in. On the contrary, it became part of what I call the Brahmastra. Yes, it was part of that. So then there's a second chapter, as you mentioned, is more about the evolution of the sari, which I've already mentioned, the history going that far. But then I go on to mention in the third chapter how we have in the sacred and the shiros, the temporal shiros, we talk about the heroes who are women heroes, how they have embodied the sari as a vastra, as an avaran of divinity. And how that then, to me, again, it's again done through a very personal lens, how that to me becomes, by transference, it becomes something. When I wear a sari, I feel like a goddess. I feel I have the power of the goddess, So that is the kind of thing that brings in. And then all these freedom fighters, they were role models for us.
That's right.
Of all, from Muslim, Hindu, others, they used to wear these saris, mostly, of course, khadi, and then later on in the Satyagraha movement, all of that. So, and then today, the power women of today, whether in politics, in corporate, in media, so I have looked at all those in parliament. Yes, absolutely. And recently we have had these very interesting reports about the finance minister and her saris and the budget. And then the other one is, of course, Kangana Ranaut and all the others who are making sari. The traditional impression about the sari or misinterpretation of the sari as something that is a symbol of divinity, modesty, or what shall we say, Shalinta, that is there, but not submission. It is not a garment of submission. It is a garment of Nari Shakti. That is what I have also affirmed in this.
One thing that I want to share with you all, and she's going to laugh, but we want to hear what she has to say. Ms. Puri, you mentioned about two absolutely fabulous reviews, which I'm sure a lot of people have read. One was by Malvika Singh in the Indian Express, and the other one is by Alka Pandey. Alka Pandey says something which I want to share with you. It says the book reflects the writer herself, which means what she's written, that this sari eternal is a dazzling gem, easy to hold, elegantly designed, and finely chiseled. How apt is it? We need some noise from the audience. So you have to now reveal the secret about every word she's written. Dazzling gem, easy to hold, elegantly designed, and finely chiseled.
Well, I invite readers to give that judgment and confirm that judgment by someone who is, as I said, a cultural authority and a historian. No, so if I may, perhaps I know that when we were talking about this book, you were intrigued by my saying, giving that sensory expression of the sari, voice, so I give it voice, I give it texture, I give it, of course, sight, and I give it scent, but also taste.
The taste.
So here is I think you were a little intrigued, so let me read a small portion of that, because I want you to read the book, and it's a short book, so I can't read too much. So there is one thing before I go on to the senses, which I thought you should just listen to it about the. So most of all, my relationship with the sari, bewilderment has indeed been a lifelong companion. Most of all, with the simplicity of a strange, unstitched fabric. So, 5.5 meters long, and 1 meters wide, and yet the grandeur of what it becomes in conjugation with one's persona, with the power of possibilities thrown open by its textures, weaves, patterns, its flow and ebb, its flurry of colors, with the mystery of its beauty that I try to unravel like a lotus, gently, petal by petal, layer by layer, with its unrestrained eccentricity. Have you experienced it? Those who have worn unrestrained eccentricity. When a sari will not yield to my ministrations because each fiber seems to have its own will and goes its own way, with my haphazardly flinging the sari off and on my body sometimes. And yet, it's falling into order by some external command, with my not being able to put the sari in the dock for boring consistency. So then the senses, 5 senses of a sari, just, I think, I'll just say, in this rich and fertile cultural tissue pool, the sari has sprung from that I have had the privilege of plunging into. My immersion in the world of saris has ignited the 5 senses of sight, sound, smell, touch and taste. Each sari is a marvel to behold, of course. Each one provides in its infinite variety the unique aesthetic pleasure, the rasa, which derives not just from its unfathomable beauty, but also from a certain vision of the maker and the wearer. You know? So one of the important things that I should have mentioned when I talked about Indian civilization is how India represents, even how sari represents the Indian womanhood. And I see the sari as also empowering, as an empowering aspect of Indian womanhood. So and then I talk about how there is the scent of a sari, something of a woman in a sari is something different from any other. Similarly, I also claim that that it has a taste. You can actually taste and so I would invite you to, and then there is a philosophy of the sari. So all of that. And by the way, I've also, there are so many varieties of saris, both weaves and styles and textures, regional variations, all of that. But I have identified a few which are my favorites, which I have worn over the years. Actually, quite a many, quite some many.
Some of us, including Jyoti, can inherit a few of those. So, coming back to this beautiful idea of Jugalbandi that you have with your husband, with Mr. Hardeep Puri. There's one piece that I want to share with you all, and we'll ask her to elaborate on that. She's written that Hardeep has been an avid participant in my sari romance, and the sari became intertwined with a love story before and after our marriage. Please tell us, and everyone should know, what was his participation, and then you got married into a Sikh family.
Yes.
So from salwar kameezes to saris, how involved was your mother-in-law, and how involved was your father-in-law about your saris, and this whole madness about your saris at home?
No, it was very interesting for me that when we got married, it was, of course, in some ways an intercultural marriage, Sikh and Hindu and Punjabi and Maharashtrian. But I was surprised to see that my mother-in-law always wore saris.
Never a shalwar.
Never salwar kameez. I think rarely, only perhaps as a night suit, she would use a salwar kameez. So, and the three men in her life, the father, I mean my father-in-law, and the two sons were very appreciative of every sari she wore, and also critical sometimes, change this sari, this is not so nice. So, you know, they were taking an interest in how she dressed and what sari she wore. So that was a revelation to me. But yes, I used to wear saris when we met in Mussoorie, but also after marriage. But also because as a diplomat, we were also required, as an Indian diplomat, that was our official dress. That was the dress that we. So his participation has been to admire, to encourage me to get more saris. and
Does he
also
still buy saris for you? Does he?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
And to appreciate when I wear a sari as against some other dress. No, and I've described how sometimes he went to the ends of the world to get me some saris which I particularly wanted.
You've written that in the book.
Yes.
And
yes.
we must discover more anecdotes around her indulgence
Yes.
to her passion for wearing saris and his indulgence towards her to keep wearing beautiful saris. One thing which struck me as a professional and as a diplomat who represent, you know, the country, the nation, and the dialogue on the international platforms. There's something that you've written saying wearing a sari in a foreign land is a part of power dressing. Sometimes it also helped in disarming because they saw someone as just a sari-clad Asian woman.
Yes.
We'd love to hear your piece on this.
So I have given some stories there, and I would like you all to read it. Do you want me to reveal those stories?
I think, yes, please.
Well, one story which I've given about Japan, that was the beginning of my career, and after we finished our language training, we joined the mission as second secretaries, and we were assigned duties, and my ambassador turned around and said that, Lakshmi, you are going to be doing administrative work and political external work, and Hardeep will do. So we were a tandem couple, we were both there in the same mission, and he will do political internal, which means involved meeting all the Japanese politicians, and he will also be doing press and media. So I said, why? I will not accept doing the administration work. Why can't I do media and communication? So he turned around and said that this is because, you know, in Japan, it's a very patriarchal setup, and no editor, they're all male editors, and my French colleague has told me that his woman press attaché failed miserably because they would not entertain her. So you, a sari wearing Indian, you know, you don't have a chance. So I said, give me a chance. You give me 2 months, and if I can't do it, then you can give me administration. But right now, I will not accept. He was indulgent, very democratic, and he gave me that chance. And I found that a Japanese-speaking, sari-wearing Indian woman got entry everywhere. So that was partly, certainly, the power of the sari. A civilizational, you know, it is such a civilizational statement you make when you walk in there. And in a country where kimono has now become almost a museum piece.
Also, Ms. Puri, you've written, you spoke about how sari embraces and it belongs to the spirit of India, the idea of India.
Yeah.
One of the nicest pieces, which is so relevant in today's complex world, she's written that the sari remains present in Buddhist life. It belongs to the Islamic rule. It belonged to the Islamic rule. It was part of the Ganga Jamuna.
Why don't you come here? Come here. Come here.
No.
Let's just you sit there. You're having eyes. I'm still surviving. Too much of a something. No, no.
Then you've written about the synthesis also reflects the Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, the Indian Christian communities unfolded gradually into wearing saris. And my favorite part is when she's written about when Tagore defied Bharat Mata, wore a simple saffron Bengali sari, and Raja Ravi Varma bejeweled Bharat Mata in a beautiful red silk sari.
Yes.
So please दिल से बताइए इस
हाँ.
चीज़ के बारे में. हाँ.
So, you see, apart from the divine manifestation of women, the Devis, the three Devis, and I talk about the Shakti Pithas, 51 Shakti Pithas, and all of that, I also talk about Bharat Mata as a conception and how she was visualized as a sari wearing goddess. Similarly, things in nature, trees were shown wearing the tree devata, Vriksha devata was shown as wearing a sari of leaves. Similarly, the Sursaritas, the Ganges river, so everything that is sacred, everything that is to be respected and venerated, and of course, Bharat Mata was a very powerful symbol at that time. And that was that was at the core of the idea of India that was emerging. First of all, that she was seen as feminine. That itself is a very strong affirmation, again a civilizational one. And that she should be wearing a sari is again part of, as you rightly said, the essence of India and Indian civilization. And of course, then as we went on, there was I've also mentioned there was a cartographic representation of India, but also still wearing a sari. Yes.
Ms. Puri, tell us about your childhood. I think there are few Gen Z sitting in this crowd with absolutely no exposure of wearing saris, but so you played ghar ghar in wearing saris. Then you went to college wearing saris. You dated wearing your beautiful saris, and then as a diplomat you wore saris. Now as a grandmother you wear saris. What tell us about the journey as a child, who was your role model, why and so much of saris existed in your life? Your mother, your aunts, your sister.
Yes, all of them. And there are, as you said, many anecdotes and stories about my childhood and my dalliance with the sari. But I think the mother was a very strong influence, and there is this story that I have told about how I once came back from school, but then I shouldn't be telling all the stories. They should be reading it in the book.
One anecdote we all would like to hear as a child, because your mother wore saris and she played tennis in saris.
She played tennis in saris. She was a Rosarian and she grew roses. And as I talk about how she consecrated her saris to rose worship, all of that. But yes, I mean there is this where in school I was teased. I was a small girl then, 5 years old, and my sister was seen as the pretty one, and so I was teased that are you the real sister, or are you adopted or foundling? So I came home very upset, and one came running to my mother, and I fell and I had a gash in my you can still see a mark there. And so when I went to, my mother came rushing, and of course she never showed emotion, and she said, strong girls don't cry. And she tore her sari. I mean, she swabbed, with her Kanjivaram sari, she swabbed my blood. So then when I went to my father, after that, and I told him the real reason why I was so upset, and he turned around and said, see, only a real mother, you don't even have to ask the question, only a real mother would sacrifice her sari and wipe your blood. And then he quoted a song which was from my cousin sister Vanmala's Shamchi Ai film, sung then by Asha Bhosle, which was about how Krishna's real sister, when he got hurt, he had a wound, it was Subhadra who, tore her zari sari and tied it around him, not his real sister. So he regarded her as the real sister. There's this very beautiful song which goes like this. Bharazariga pitambara dila phaduna Draupadiche bandhu shobhe narayana. Draupadi was the one who tore, and he repaid her later by extending her sari.
God, these epic stories. And what do I do when we start getting parchas? So for 15 minutes we've dealt with the sun, and now we're getting 5 minutes parcha. So, but coming back to one particular piece which you don't usually find in other saris on book is the future of saris.
Yes.
So what would be your giveaway? Why is you have a granddaughter who's in the bracket of Gen Z, and what would you suggest and advise the young girls of today when men also find girls crazy pretty in saris, as what she quoting her, why are they not wearing saris, and what would you suggest and advise to them?
Yeah. So, yes, this Gen Z chapter I think is the most important one because it's future facing, but also present facing and future facing. And I want to say it's actually an appeal and a love letter to Gen Z on behalf of the sari, if you will, to say that embrace it. And I have looked at all the factors that deter Gen Z from embracing it. There is the convenience factor. Oh, it's not so convenient to run in it, or to catch a bus, or to ride a scooter, or to work, to sport, to
dance.
To dance. Well, dance, as a costume, of course, it's so beautiful. But in any case, comfort, convenience, and most importantly, the difficulty of wearing it. It was a rite of passage when we were growing up, and I think the millennials also to some extent had that. You had to be taught how to wear a sari. Now that's no longer the case, unfortunately, and I'm talking about the metros. What I have found is the majority of women, including Gen Z in India, wear saris, but in metros, that is changed.
That's right.
That has changed. And so I'm saying to all Gen Z that, this is, and so that there is this, they are daunted by the fact of not being able to wear a sari. It's not so easy. And it takes time. One has to learn it. And in this era of instant, you want everything instant. It's not such a popular dress. Then there is the other, which we used to have even when I was in college. There was this concept of Benji. Benjis wear saris and, So, and I've said how I wore a sari and made it cool. Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell Gen Z, and then of course there is this other factor. And then I'll come to the last part. So then there is the other factor about being cool and all that, but also somehow that this is a burden of tradition. That if you wear a sari, it gives the image is that of a traditional conservative woman, hidebound, and not a liberated, empowered. And then there is the trad wife kind of label that is, of course.
Will you elaborate on that?
No, traditional wife, homemaker, traditional wife. So many people don't want that image to be given. And they also think that in the workplace, particularly a multinational or, that kind of multicultural workplace, they also don't want to stand out. So there are many of these reasons. Now, my response, and then because it is handed down, it is somehow seen as, conformist, being conformist. I want to say that for Gen Z, it should be, this is a garment which is back to the future as no other.
Very well said.
Back to the future as no other. Because, it is something that enables you to express your individuality like nothing else.
We cannot skip again a very, very unusual chapter, which is the Bollywood.
Okay.
If you
No, but just to finish quickly. So, as I said, there is this element that it's a statement dress. It should be not only it's about individuality, it's a statement dress, not one which shows you as a conformist. It in fact shows you in all your fluidity, in your creativity, in your power and imagination. So like nothing else. And by the way, I may be wearing sari most of the time, but I also migrate into other dresses as convenient, as I've explained also. And it doesn't mean that you should always be wearing a sari, but do keep faith with the sari, because I feel certainly Indian women, but also now so many foreigners have embraced. I've talked about designers, influencers, power women in every field. There is a movement which is going on, particularly social media led movement. I've talked about all of that, which is now, driving a resurgence of the sari.
And what about the
So you are the torch bearers
and
of
the men.
making sari.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
when I'm coming. You are the torch bearers of making sari eternal.
And would you encourage all the men here to read the book and buy saris?
Absolutely, absolutely. Someone came to me before. Yes, absolutely. As I said, in our surveys we found, I got my colleague Rohan here to conduct some of these surveys, and he found that men in some ways were much more appreciative of saris than even some of the women respondents to our survey. So yes, absolutely encourage your mothers and admire your mothers, sisters, daughters, lovers and wives wearing the sari.
Now we will end
And
with-
as part of Nari Shakti.
and part of Nari Shakti. Big hand of, put your hands together to celebrate the idea of sari which she shares. But before we wrap up, there are very quick, fun questions which will give insight to sari and her, which is called the rapid fire. Very quick one. Now, you prefer Bharat Mata. What's your personal choice? In Tagore's saffron cotton sari or Raja Ravi Verma's red silk sari?
Red silk sari.
Yeah. Okay. Both of you have
In all her glory.
in all her glory, bejeweled. You have two daughters. What do you tell them about saris? Do you know both of their favorite saris? Would you know as a mother? Please share with us.
Well, because they were born and brought up mostly outside India.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, their connect with the sari is not as good as I would have liked it to be. But my younger daughter loves saris, and she also knows how to wear saris. So on cultural occasions, festivals, she does take out her saris and wear them. But for my elder daughter, it is stitched saris. And by the way, one of the things I'm saying to Gen Z, innovate, wear them with, I've quoted many divas, fashionistas as saying, wear them with your sneakers, wear them. There is also this skate, sari on skates movement. So you can innovate, you can wear half, you can wear, stitched, partially stitched. So there's so much to do with the sari.
One sari that every woman must own.
One sari that every woman must own. Difficult to choose. I would say Banarasi and Kanjivaram. And Paithani. Three.
Okay, three. Of course. Now, who's your favorite actor?
Who's my favorite actor?
Male.
This is out of
syllabus.
Boundary.
Yes.
Out of the boundary. Huh?
Who would be? We all want to know who's your favorite actor.
Very difficult question.
All-time favorite.
All-time favorite. Oh God, I'm stumped. Well, if you look at the oldies, Devanand was. And of course, then the generations come, keep moving. Hrithik certainly is one of my later favorites. Yeah.
So if you had to meet Devanand and Hrithik today, what would be your picks of the saris from your wardrobe?
Well, that the chapter on Bollywood has this sketch. By the way, the illustrations are so beautiful. You must see the video which has been put out by Aleph and which is also on my Insta and X about the sketches that are there, the illustrations in this. And there is an illustration of Devanand and Wahida Rahman, where she's singing that song on the truck, where she's singing the song "Kaanton se kheech ke main aachal." So well, that kind with Devanand, and with Hrithik something very maybe chiffon with flowers on it.
Yes. How cool! And the last question would be for this audience, any of the ladies who don't own any sari or just don't wear saris at all, what would be the takeaway for those ladies from your book?
Please get a sari straight away and see the difference. This book promises you complete kaya kalp. A metamorphosis, a transformation like you've never felt before. And I say this not only because, I'm, as I said, so married to the sari, if you will, and so much into it, but as a garment, but also, as I said, as a civilizational being, that you will feel as if you have a companion. I've talked also about how the sari is so comforting, how the sari is mental therapy. So many things the sari means. So please get yourself a friend, a companion, and also it's such a beautiful thing. It adds to your beauty. It brings out your both inner beauty and external beauty.
Wow, thank you so much. Now I think, The book is available outside. Please get your copy signed, order on Amazon, and can you conclude?
Yes,
please.
yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs.
We'll have to seek your permission. Could we just take 2 questions?
Can we
Huh?
take 2 questions?
Could we please take 2 questions? Huh?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, from the audience is very important.
I thought
Huh?
we had 4 to 5. So then,
We have 5. Let's take questions from the. I have been told from this side and this side that we need to. But can we pass on the mic to the lady, Rohan? You want to take mine? Just raise your hand and pass on the mic.
Which is the sari that you remember wearing and it made you feel most special on an iconic moment, and one that you could wear over and over again?
oh, yes, I think my first ambassadorship. You know, the wedding sari, of course, is always very special, which I had. It was a tissue, red tissue Banarasi sari. And then there was a Kanjivaram sari with, which I have described in the book, which is cream body and a Ganga Jamni like the one Jayati is wearing, which I gifted to her. And I'm wearing what Jayati has gifted to me. So, so that had Ganga Jamni also, green and red, you know, this temple borders. And that I wore for my, and I had a heavy fur coat on top, but I wore that for my, when I was accepting my agrima as ambassador, you know, and then I had to go wearing that to lay a wreath at the square where, you know, you pay respect to the fallen soldiers. You know, that's part of the ritual of presenting your credentials. So I think that is something that I remember as iconic moment and iconic sari. And I wore over and over again for many other occasions where I was signing agreements or things like that. Yes.
No, give it to her, please.
Yeah.
No, Rohan, give it to her, then we'll come to you.
Please make it quick and short.
Yes. Hello, ma'am. So when we talk about women wearing sari, that is often accompanied with an argument that it is a part of our tradition and we need to keep it alive. But on the other hand, why do we not have a book, something like the Dhoti Eternal? I want to say that when we are talking about keeping the tradition alive, why is the burden still on women? Because I don't see us talking about propagating dhoti the same way we talk about saris.
Very good question. I think I'm going to make that suggestion.
Yes.
Excellent question. Make that. I'm all for gender equality. And I would recommend that to my, my publisher to consider. Yes, and I think the men have abandoned the dhoti more than women have abandoned the sari. I think they have kept faith. I give one example of going to the Kumbh Mela, and most of the women, most, I would say 95% of women who came there, and I believe 600 million people visited the Kumbh Mela this time, most of the women were wearing saris. So, you know, we are keeping faith, but yes, it's also upon the men to keep alive the unstitched cloth tradition on their side. Yes.
Brilliant
Okay,
question. There's a lady there. Huh.
Hello, ma'am. I'm coming from a family who has been in the business of sari for more than 50 years in West
Yes.
Bengal. So, growing up with the sari has always been an integral part of my life. So, my question to you is that, like, I have a lot of friends who recognizes themselves, like male friends who recognizes themselves in differently, and they love sari more than we drape. As being a Gen Z or whatever youngsters, we are just moving away from the sari culture, like as you already mentioned, as we see different in the Insta and all different types of sari, like how they can tweak and all, but still we can see over the social media, like when male drape the sari, people look themselves in a different way. So
Sorry? When?
when male wear drape saris, when male drip saris, like there are male, like queer people.
Male.
Yes. So people see themselves in a different way, and they that time like they distinguish the sari and the masculinity of themselves. So what is your take on that? Because this book is like universal and it will be read by all.
I didn't get the question because men wear saris in terms of transgenders.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that is fine. In fact, it is their tribute, and I think there is great respect in our society for transgenders, and we have been accepting them, not only accepting, celebrating them in all shubh occasions. They come and you know they become part of the celebration. So I don't think that there is any stigma attached to that or to their wearing a sari, because I'm in fact, that's a question that came to me, that how come transgenders wear saris rather than some other dress. So again, that's a tribute to the sari, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Lakshmipuri and Miss Ambreen, for taking us on such a graceful journey through the sari, not just in attire, but as a living archive of culture, history, and womanhood. Can we have a huge round of applause? Now I invite Ms. Bharti Bhargav to present a token of appreciation, as we are grateful to both of you for enriching this festival with thought, elegance, and meaning. Everybody, can we have a huge round of applause?
Just look here, ma'am, please. One more picture, ma'am. Just look here, ma'am, please.